as entrepreneurs, we want to make a huge difference. We're in it, most of us, for a lifetime to make that dent in the universe, as Steve Jobs talks about. I have a guest today who's doing just that. And along the way, life has definitely intruded. Some great lessons on how you can overcome unbelievable obstacles by reacting well at each of the choice points. I'm John Bowen. We are at aesnation.com, all about accelerating your success and making a huge difference. Stay tuned. You're going to be glad you did.
Ordinary success? No way. You want amazing, remarkable, exceptional breakthroughs. Dig deep, think bold, drive hard, watch yourself soar beyond your dreams. aesnation.com.
Harry, I am so excited to have you here. You've got an unbelievable story. You and I met just really a little while ago at Joe Polish's Genius Network. A bunch of fellow CEOs were sharing stories and what we're doing to change the world, and I was inspired by you, so I wanted to share you with our audience. So first of all, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, John. It's great to hear here.
Well, and one of the things that I love working with serial entrepreneurs. You've got that. You're an investor. You're an inventor, and even a filmmaker. I think at a young age, you pretty much covered everything, and you're making a real difference in the healthcare industry. And I want to get to that. But before, I think it's so important to hear your backstory because you weren't always a picture of health. I mean, what kind of inspired you, Harry, to go on the journey that you're on?
Yeah, I had quite a tough 20s, and when I was 21, I ended up with chronic fatigue syndrome, and I spent about 7 years of that pretty much completely bedridden or mostly house ridden, and I basically tried all sorts of cures from conventional medicine through to alternative medicine to try and get myself better. And yeah, really, I got to this point where I wasn't really getting anywhere in my own health journey. And so I thought I'd better try and take it on myself. And I had this crazy idea, and it was really crazy because I was completely bedridden with no energy and really no support. But I had this idea that if you could create a home wellness system, it would be able to both get me better because I'd be provided with the information and knowledge I needed to get myself better, but also if that worked, it could help other people too. So that was really the thing that spurred me into business was really to try and get myself better and hopefully other people better too.
Well, one of the things that we see over and over again as successful entrepreneurs, I mean, what happens is we're going ahead and we have a passion, and I can't imagine a passion stronger than getting healthy. Particularly being knocked down that hard for so long, and then we want to be a hero to other groups. And a lot of times, it's in our enlightened self-interest that we want to be a hero to ourselves as well. And it's a broad audience, and and I mean, there's a lot of lessons because you've built a great business, and really the business plan is pretty amazing what you're doing. But I'm thinking, okay, Harry, you're in bed, you're having this vision. I live in Silicon Valley, as you do now too, and picking up the phone call and getting research people and investors to back your idea when you're in your 20s and have chronic fatigue. I don't think that, how did you make this happen? Because it's almost mission impossible.
It was mission impossible, but I think the context is that I was so desperate and so ill, and I was basically trapped in a bedroom in my parents' house, and at that sort of point you have absolutely nothing to lose. So in my mind I was like, well, what am I'd already been lying there for 6-7 years, reading books, being on the internet. I was learning huge amounts about health, and I was getting into all these physics ideas, but I just thought, well, I've got absolutely zero to lose but to try. So it was it's really persistence, firstly. But yeah, to your point about getting investors and all that type of stuff, I didn't even try because I knew that would be completely hopeless. Because who's going to back someone who can't even go and meet them? Let alone would probably sound really dreadful on the phone because they didn't have many social skills, being sort of completely out from society. Um, but you know, I was very fortunate, and I basically looked around on the internet to see who the most prominent researchers were in this field called energy medicine, which is basically looking at how energy works in the body, or if you like, the physics of biology. And I was very fortunate because this scientist from Australia, he did answer my email, and we picked up a relationship on the phone. He was in Australia and I was in England, and we ended up meeting in Los Angeles, and he basically liked this idea that I had of creating a home wellness system, and we both sort of had enough knowledge between us that we thought we could pull it off. But yeah, we basically did it completely shoestrings, no cash whatsoever. And you know what I mean? What I mean by that is, I mean, these are what we have today of infoceuticals, but we inkjet labeled all the labels. I used a turkey baster to fill up the bottles. The first machines I used to buy silver buttons from Marks and Spencer's, which is a retail store in Britain, and you know, I used to use the drill and put the buttons in, and yeah, it was done completely and utterly bootstrapped with, you know, just $0, and Peter did it for equity, and a coder did it for equity, and obviously I did it for equity. And you know, and I think yeah, it took us a year to create this first device and piece of software and these first infoceuticals. But it was an extremely tough time because I was also still really ill. And Peter was basically healing me with, well, we're basically inventing solutions for health while we were making it, while I was getting better, but trying to start a business off the ground. I'm not sure I'd recommend people who are really ill to get businesses off the ground, but on the other hand, also having a purpose also rises you above. And you know, however dreadful you feel, I think having a purpose can pull you out of some incredibly tight spots in life. And I know for me, having a purpose was immensely helpful.
Well, I mean, it really is. I actually think it's critical for all of us as entrepreneurs that we have to have a purpose. You know, we've all, I think most of the entrepreneurs listening here, we're talking largely to very successful entrepreneurs, and we're looking on, you know, how can we accelerate our success even more. But I think taking a look back at what you went through when you have nothing to lose, you know, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And so many times as entrepreneurs, we have accumulated some wealth, you know, reputation, ego, all that, and we're not willing to take those risks, and we play the safe game. And in today's world, such a competitive environment, so you have nothing to lose. You know, you have purpose. I mean, a purpose, boy. You know, Harry, I can't think of a bigger one. You know, energy management, energy medicine. As an entrepreneur, I know how important. I always think of it as we're corporate athletes, and you know when we look at an athlete, they're training at least 90% of their time. They're managing their energy and so on. And most of us don't do that. And you know, whether we get chronic fatigue syndrome, but we just aren't as productive. And boy, if we can do that. So I mean, I love that. And for the whole, you know, 7 billion other people hanging out with us, and then kind of the magic of bootstrapping. You know, sometimes I think it's a competitive advantage when you have no money, because you know you become really creative. You know, when you told me, you know, buying silver buttons and drilling holes. I mean, you know, turkey baster. You know, you can make things happen. You know, you don't need a lot of money. I mean,
no, you just need ideas in your brain, really. Yeah, well, I mean, it's really interesting for me because I've just moved from England to Silicon Valley, and you know, I look around and you just see these millions of dollars and people being paid huge amounts of money, and you know, I do just think, my goodness, like if I had the budgets that go into the valley here, it'd probably, well, I don't know, it might be insane what we'd achieve, but also, yeah, also the huge amounts of wasted, because I mean we've created this whole new model of biology based on physics, and then built all the technology around it. You know, really, I mean, over a few years, but for a relatively cheap price, for only a few $1 million. But those dollars have come out of cash flow, while we've been paying all our operating expenses. And yeah, it's a completely different world to the Valley here, where they put in hundreds of millions into something.
Well, and one of the things, I mean, there's such an acquisition culture because they're acquiring businesses like yours, and the reason for it is that it's unlikely that they can really accomplish. I know for most of my professional career, I was a financial advisor, and I had the privilege of working with many of the successful entrepreneurs in the Valley, and some of the guys who were bootstrapping or had small, mid-sized businesses. Microsoft would make an announcement that they were going after that market, and I'd ask them, "Are you worried?" And and really they were worried if there was only 10 people going, in that group working. If there were 100 or huge amounts of resources, nobody worried because, it's very hard to marshal major teams. But if you get 10 motivated people with a clear purpose, boy, you can change the world, and you're doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that bootstrapping thing. It's always just a few people, and like small teams manage to create amazing things. And I think as soon as you get more than 10, 15 people trying to do some product development thing, I think it gets a bit crazy.
Well, how are you? I mean, what was it prompting you to move from the UK to California here, Silicon Valley?
There's a couple of reasons. I mean, partly it's partly we'd been making this film called Choice Point, which a lot of the people in that were over here. Partly our co-founder scientists also died a couple of years ago, but also really because I knew to take these ideas much further, that really America was the place to do it, because I mean America, and especially the Valley here, they're just extremely supportive for new ideas. And with what we're trying to do here, which is I mean, we've basically had 100 years of a biochemistry system and genetics. What we're doing here is really looking at the physics of biology, and to do that creates an incredible amount of R&D and forward-thinking people. And I mean, Europe's a great place, but I was just in a small seaside town in England, and wanted to play on a bigger field, really.
Well, and tell me, one of the things that's been impressive, Harry, in the short time we've known each other, is you're a long-term player. I mean, you've got a long-term horizon. When you told me what you went through in your 20s and your vision of where you are, the purpose of what you're doing, I mean, it's pretty amazing. Maybe share kind of what your purpose is, what you want to do, big picture, that long-term horizon, and how do you have not only yourself but your team really focused on that with all the the challenges early on and the challenges as you're scaling up your business?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So, I mean, overall, we really want to transform how healthcare is done and how it's looked at, and that's both from how it's done and from how people get well, but also the actual research and science ideas behind it. So, and we're really trying to change a paradigm from biochemistry through to biophysics, or in other words, because if you start looking at the physics of biology, how a cell is actually generating energy, because cells get energy from all these other sources that aren't just food and nutrition based. And some cutting edge people understand those ideas, but it's certainly not understood in broader society whatsoever. And it is interesting. So I look at that as a sort of a 20-25 year game plan. And partly when you're getting going, when you first get going, you just have to make something that works. So we made a product that worked, and then it's like, okay, well, we've made this, but we don't have any training for it, and no one understands what we're talking about. So it's okay, well, we'll create a training program for it. The next phase was like, well, these ideas are really not very well understood, and that's why we got into filmmaking, and we made this film called The Living Matrix, a new science of healing to get those ideas out to a broader sphere, and that helped quite a lot. And if you project forwards again, like another 10 15 years. Having a strong research institute that funds really, really fundamental research that may or may not have, it may or may not have product that comes out of it, but it's extremely important to our understanding of biology and how physics relates to that. And then, we've also got other pieces like we're building out an animal business. The reason we build out an animal business, one, I do love animals, but two, it's also a regulatory safe cash flow business that can fund these other more fundamental areas on the human side, which is a far more political sort of hot potato. And then when you're looking really long term, you have to get into lobbying to be able to change how regulations are done to allow these things to come to the fore. But I think ultimately, if you provide enough solutions and get enough and get the ideas out there, and that's why I'm really into filmmaking, and we're making another film called Supercharged, which goes much deeper into both the biohacking movement and the quantum biology movement, and perhaps more interesting for entrepreneurs. We're really looking at how you can get peak performance out of using these biohacking ideas, and of how you're biohacking the different energy systems in the body. So none of these things can be done like in a traditional 3-year plan, plonk X $1 million in, sell out to a big pharma company 3-4 years later. That isn't our game. We're looking at a broader, longer term game.
Well, Harry, what I'd love to have you talk about is, because you will have that long-term vision, and it's amazing, and even, really in Silicon Valley, you've been here long enough that you know that that's not always the case. There are definitely some people doing that, but there's a lot of young entrepreneurs, male and female, that are looking to just really flip their business, very, very quickly. And you're doing some pretty non-traditional. I think the thing that jumps out at me when you and I were talking, you go, and by the way, I'm doing some filmmaking, and I'm thinking, like today where we're doing over Skype a video. That's filmmaking to me. But no, you're doing feature films and so on. That's not traditional. What got you into doing that along the way to get this message out?
Mainly, I think it was about 4 or 5 years in, and I don't know what we'd got to, like a few $1 million turnover. And this wasn't in the States. This was basically within Britain, Australia, and dotted around in Europe. And I just thought, well, it's great. Like we've got something that works. We're getting great clinical success stories out from our practitioners, and we'd done a few preliminary studies. But absolutely nobody in the broader world knew what we were talking about. And well, and it's literally, I don't think there's a better medium. You can write a book, but books, well, if you play the game, you might get to an Amazon top seller for a week or two, and then it drifts off again. But movies, if you make a good movie, you can really get across a message in a much more understandable way. And obviously, and people just like watching movies, and so that's really why we decided to do it. I guess the next question from that is, how on earth do you go about it, and why do you think you could even make one? I think it's just the same as so when I was ill in bed. Can you make a home wellness system? At the time you don't know how to do something, but if you have the willingness, you find a way, or the people turn up to help make it happen. And in the Living Matrix case, again, I was fortunate to meet someone who had they had like a video advertising business, and actually they were a customer of ours, and so I got to know them, and we decided to partner up to make that first film, which was great. And I did like the script writing and the interviewing end, and he did all the camera work and the editing, and that worked out really well. So if you don't know something yourself, you can always find a partner to do it, as long as I think the purpose of what you're trying to do is worthwhile. I think you'll always meet those people at some point, and I don't particularly ever worry about going out and searching these people. I guess I just put those ideas out there, and when you talk to people, you mention it, and the universe seems to sort itself out like that. I don't really go on LinkedIn and search out. Oh, I need a filmmaker. I need this. Maybe I should, but
Well, it is amazing. I mean, at the meeting we're at, Jeff Hayes was there too, who's an unbelievably talented filmmaker, and and he's really helped getting out a lot of messages out. And the part it's kind of interesting to me, Harry, and I want to go just a little deeper and then come back to the big picture again, because I know there's fellow entrepreneurs that are listening to you and going, geez, maybe I should get my message out using that medium. And so you have this purpose, you have very clear motivation to get it out. You want to be a hero, really, to the world. And then in doing that, you found someone who shared that, had the talent to do it. How did you distribute it? Because I mean, it's one thing. You can do the film, and the old word would be to put it in a can and forget about it type thing. There's another part. We're going to actually have a few people watch it that are inspired to action.
Sure. I mean, firstly, obviously, the absolute rule of thumb is you've got to make a really good film, because, and I think if it's good, the people are going to come to you to help distribute it. And I mean, that absolutely happened in our case. I mean, I think, the first thing we did is, before we actually finished the film, we organised a premiere in London where we invited all the stars and all that type of stuff. I think we could only have 400 people in the room, but I remember that we had to turn away 200 people at the door. The film was still being edited by Greg on the plane as he came over to London, so it was a little bit risky. But it worked, and and with all those people, they sort of spread the word quite quickly. I think the first people we hired was some basically PR people who are just putting PR releases out onto the internet. I think it was through Newswire and obviously on Facebook. And those are really great, because those always get taken up by all this other online media and end up everywhere. We did pretty well out of that, and then we also ran screenings or screening packages where we let all our fans run screenings, and they could buy a whole load of DVDs, and they would keep the ticket prices, but they would sell DVDs on our behalf. So that helped a lot. Various radio shows and that type of thing. But and then the distributor of The Secret picked it up within a month, and that helped. Well, we picked up 18 different distributors, I think, around the world that sort of sold the DVD rights. We're not really in that DVD world anymore. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's moved on. I think it's like 5% of what it was 6-7 years ago. So now it definitely should all be focused online. And some people give away the film for a 2-month period in their launch period to get the numbers, to get it to go viral, or they give out the first half an hour of the film and then you pay for it afterwards. There's all sorts of sort of social sharing models like that.
Well, what do you see the impact that had on your professional career, your businesses, and so on?
It was really interesting, because while it was quite tough trying to get people on board in that movie, because we were an unknown, or we were a product company rather than people who were trying to change a paradigm. And I remember there were at least 2 or 3 people that were incredibly hard, and I won't name them, but they were incredibly hard to get on board in that first film, because I think they were worried that we were going to use them to promote our product. But anyway, mm-hmm. we did convince them in the end. And I think afterwards the tables completely turned, and they would just do anything to. Well, that was the other way. They also spread the movie through all of their lists and all that type of stuff. So we got a huge amount of support afterwards, and now of course people want to know us because we make films, and they know the films we've made. We never abused. We didn't just plonk nests throughout it and abuse. We could have done really awful product placement and
Right.
abused the position we had. And I remember talking to Dr. McCullough. He also distributes our films. So I mean that helped quite a bit. And I remember him ringing me up, and he actually couldn't understand or believe that he didn't actually realize it was made by anyone to do with Ness or anything, because he's like, well, how come you didn't do that? And I explained why. I said, well, because we want the film to have a really broad reach, and that would have narrowed it down. And then I remember him saying that was quite an enlightened viewpoint, and he was quite surprised. But
No, that's great. I mean, and that's, I think having that long-term vision is just so critical, in the connections and relationships that you've gotten, the positioning for yourself. I mean, that's a big part. I mean, when you're a new member to our group, and I asked, what does Harry do? And they didn't say the health side. Oh, he makes movies, and and everybody loves movies. And then how does that all come together? And I think that's it's amazing when you're doing that, the connections that you can get and access to people who are aligned with the purpose that you have. And you've done a great job.
I would. I mean, I'd say, I mean, it's an incredible way of doing it, actually. Well, I mean, I wasn't really aware of things like Genius Network, and I guess that's another way of meeting people. But for me, because I had this whole chronic fatigue story, and I think that the conventional way of meeting people is to go to networking events, go to conferences, or get on the speaking circuit. And although I got over a lot of my illness, sort of travel wasn't really an option for me, because my health suffered if I traveled a lot. And that's also one of the reasons we thought, well, if we make a movie, we can get the message out without traveling anywhere, and then it's easy to pick up the phone to people. And I get other avenues you could just join a network like Genius Network or your group or etc. instead. I mean, that's another way of doing it.
Yeah, no, it may be easier to join a mastermind group, if you will, but I think it's a little bit more interesting doing it the way you've done, and you've really leveraged it.
Bit more expensive, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I mean, writing the check for a mastermind group is a lot easier stuff, but it's we're a product of our journeys, and you've got a huge destination you're working to, and it's pretty amazing. I want to bring it back to the health side, and let's go to a segment here, and this is the book of the day. Very prolific on a lot of fronts. I'm going to pull up on Amazon your book, the Decoding the Human Body Field, the New Science of Information as Medicine. And what's in this, Harry? And why would some of our fellow entrepreneurs enjoy or find this valuable reading this?
It's really about Peter, who's the scientist, and my story of how we decoded, well, basically of how we decoded the map of the human body field. And so it's that story of how we were looking at the physics of biology, and how we basically how we both got ourselves better and then ended up turning it into an overall health system. I think for other entrepreneurs, the Choice Point book might be slightly more relevant, because the Choice Point book's subline is called Align Your Purpose, and that really looks into these three main principles, which are called Understand Your World, and Align Your Purpose, and Be the Change. And that really came out of in my own story. When The Secret came out, it was all about, well, if you visualize millions of dollars and visualize this, then it all just happens. And I was like a little bit funny about that, because I knew in my own story it had come out of a really significant crisis, or what we call a choice point, and this purpose had come out of that crisis, and it was really the purpose that had created everything. Then people and the universe, etc., sort of conspired and helped to make it happen. But really, because our purpose was aligned with what other people want. So that's an even more incredible movie project, because we interviewed like Richard Branson and Greg Braden and Desmond Tutu and Dal Long and Jack Canfield, and there's like a list of sort of who is like John Paul de Jourier, and I think we had 4 billionaires in that film, so it's pretty that was a pretty incredible project. And really, we wanted to see if they had the same. Well, I was really curious if they'd had the same sort of choice points or crises in their life that gave them purpose to make this happen. And yeah, and it happened to be the case. Like Jean-Paul Dujour is I guess a very classic American example. But I mean, he'd been homeless twice, and really fallen down right to the gutter twice to get himself up. I mean, Richard Branson spent time in well, only I think just one night in jail, but that was also a very significant turning point for him of how he viewed the world and how he should be doing business and stuff. And he's always been an extraordinarily aligned person, because he got into it by setting up a student magazine because he really didn't like what was happening in the Vietnam War, and then the records came out of that, and and obviously now he does all this work with Virgin Unite, and I think it was the same was true for many of the other people in that film.
Well,
So
it's so powerful, I mean, I hadn't thought of it as choice points. I love that terminology. And in fact, let's go to the next segment. One of the resources I'd like to pull up is the Choice Point website, www.choicepointmovement.com. And what are they going to find here, Harry?
you can basically watch the movie with all of those people in just as a stream, and there's also a course, and we made this unbelievable amount of work, but we basically took those 1,500 hours of footage and created 23 smaller films on all of these really significant steps that helps you to align your purpose. And then we also created a whole load of lovely, beautiful written documents and all of these exercises. Well, in other words, it's a whole sort of, it's really a self-help course that helps you through your choice points and to align your purpose, but it's just full of wisdom from all of those incredible people. I mean, it's an incredibly deep experience.
Well, and one of the things I'm so impressed with what you've done, Harry, is that, I mean, you've gone ahead and, really the connections you've made, what you've accomplished. There are very few people who have done anything like that. And let me put up, if you mentioned your company, and neshealth.com, and I've got that up. And if they're interested in learning more about what you're doing on your solutions, what will they find here?
What they'll find there is sort of an overview of the total wellness system, which is really comes in 4 parts. But we have we have a device where you can see into the energy of your body, so you can look at all the health of all your different organ systems and emotions and nutrition, etc. going on. We have another handheld device called My Health, which was featured on the Doctor's Show, and that can basically trigger a response in any part of the body. And then we also have these liquid drops that are called infoceuticals, which came out of the research that Peter and I did of mapping the information of the human body. That's basically what's on that site.
Now, this is great. Let me go to the last segment. And this is key takeaways. And Harry, I got a whole bunch of notes, but I mean, as fellow entrepreneurs, what I want all of us to be thinking about, and it's just such a reminder of, the power of small groups. And when you're passionate and you have purpose, you have nothing to lose. Bootstrapping. Sometimes as we have more success, we've got a lot more money. We can throw resources and quite honestly waste things. And by getting that group that has just really a purpose, a long term, they want to be a hero to a group, it's amazing how you can find a way. And Harry, you really demonstrated that. And then the power of connections and bringing a group together that shares your mission, just outstanding. I want to wish you the best of success in continuing this, because it's going to make a difference to our 7 billion plus fellow human beings here, and certainly help all of the entrepreneurs maintain the energy they need to make a difference. I'm going to encourage everyone to go to aesnation.com. There'll be the transcript, all the links that Harry and I talked about during the show will be there. And above all, go execute. take these nuggets that Harry shared with us. Your clients, your future strategic partners, all those connections are counting on you. Don't let them down. We wish you the best of success.
Exceptional, remarkable breakthroughs. AESNation.com.